Hello, welcome to Pantheon of the Geeks. This is a review of Archaon, 5th book of the End Times, which I was up till 4 o'clock this morning reading. Yay! I am absolutely knackered. Anyway, so last instalment of the End Times, all about Archaon. It's in a big slipcase. The 2 books in, just like the this will be the standard edition now because there's a limited edition for some reason. Trying to make more money, I suppose, but so we get 2 books just like every other edition. Hard case edition anyway. Don't think you get 2 books in the soft backs. No. Yeah, so we got book 2, which you may have seen briefly if you watched Claire's video yesterday of the Warmongers. But this is my review of the first book, and then we'll go on to the second book afterwards. So you can look at the rules and stuff. But we'll start with Archaon. So, if you haven't read the numerous leaks on the internet leading up to this, or haven't seen any of the videos, there is massive spoilers in what I'm about to tell you if you want to read the book yourself. So you might want to skip through big chunks of it, but there's massive spoilers. I'm going to tell you all about it. So, yeah, Archaon, the End Times. So, Brink of Doom. This is where Archaon speaks with Chaos Fate Weaver. This is the old passage about it. This is the first thing that happens in the book. There's this passage where he's speaking to him, Chaos being all manipulative and saying, "Ooh, why have you stopped? Why are you not advancing on the enemy?" And he's like, "Well, you know, I'll do what I like," kind of thing. But it's Tzeentch upset that I'm not following him. And he's like, "Oh no, I'm not saying Tzeentch upset, but the other gods might be." You know, try and manipulate him as Tzeentch great demons do. So he's like, "Oh right, so should I entertain them?" He's like, "Yeah, entertain them," kind of thing. "What do you think I should do?" "Oh well, you can just entertain them," kind of thing. So he entertains them by ripping the guy's heads off and kicking him into pool of blood. Which certainly entertains Corn, because a big bloodthirster comes out of the pool of blood and pledges his service to him. This is Cabana, or Cabana, however you say his name. Even the name's a bit weird, so. But he's the one, I think he's the same one from 40k. That people have mentioned. I'll have to look that up. Citation needed, I get a chance to look it up. If anyone watches this, it could be the same one from 40k that breaks Sanguinius' legs. I'm not sure. I might be wrong, don't quote me. I shall look it up afterwards. So, this is the opener for it. He kills one god servant to amuse another one. And this is basically how the book goes with Archaon. This is suits him down to the ground, this is him. So then we're into the actual chapters of what's going on. The final stand in the Empire is in Averheim. That's the last city of the Empire. The rest of the Empire has been obliterated. All the survivors from everything else that have made it are in Averheim. Even the dwarves. The dwarves have come to Averheim. The Slayer King. And all the remaining dwarves that aren't sealed in the holds, deep down in the holds, hiding, diggy holing into the depths of the earth. These the last, if you will, men and dwarves standing together. And Bretonnians. There's Duke Gerard. And this is the army of Sigmar. Right, so this is the stage where the Emperor's going off to try and do a counterattack against the siege weapons that surround this city. It's Reveiw the Curseling, who's the one who's actually sieging the city on behalf of Archaon. So next big spoiler, I'll tell you what happens to him. Basically, the Emperor attacks, throws one of his spells off balance. There he is, Reveiw the Curseling, Throm. So, just briefly, big battle ensues. Something doesn't go well. He has to go into combat himself. The Emperor destroys loads of the siege weapons. He's become the embodiment of heaven, so he creates this storm bridge between Averheim and the siege camp. Crosses it with all his troops. This sort of like warp portal stays open. He does what he does, knocks them out, runs back through the warp portal, and Reveiw the Curseling runs after him and gets trapped because both ends close before he can get out. So he's now trapped in the nothingness. And then he wanders for ages, telling Throm, his brother, to wander and wander until he comes to what he thinks is a stone wall. Turns out it's not a stone wall. Tries to go back, can't go back because there's another stone wall, which isn't a stone wall. Then Tzeentch answers his prayer, even though he didn't make one, which confuses him. And then Throm speaks and basically says, no, it was me that made the prayer, and now it's my turn. So Throm takes over, and Village becomes a slave of Throm, forgetting his own personality, forgetting the spells himself. And he just becomes an actual limb for Throm to cast spells through, basically, and hold on to the staff. Throm gets control of his body, and turns out they're actually in Tzeentch's crystal labyrinth, and he just walks out then, and that's the last we see of him. So he's still around, just as his brother this time, and he survives what happens next, which we'll get to at the end. Which if you haven't seen, I'll spoil it at the end for you. So this is what this next bit's about. It's the whole battle, the ruins of Bolin, and there we are. So these books, again, just the quality you've been expecting from the rest of the books. I don't know what the limited edition's like. I thought 150 quid was a bit much for it. I know there's an art book in it as well, but I'd rather just have the same edition I've already got than the collection looks the same. Besides, I'll probably bring out a limited edition of them all together or something at the end. So, Valia, so she meets her end. She's fighting the Emperor's champion. And big battle ensues between them. He loses his weapon, all he's got left is the standard. And they kill each other basically. She flies down with a spear. The standard's been broken by her in a previous conflict, so he turns it up into a spear himself, the makeshift spear. She spears him through the heart, he spears her through the spine, they both die, and then get run over by Juggernaut. So they are both dead.
Squish.
Emperor's champion and they kill each other. The new model that's out next week, Scar Bloodwraith, great name. He dies in the first battle, and then many battles afterwards because he just keeps coming back. So it's quite an interesting character actually. He's got quite a cool model of himself. So here we have the Lady's Chosen, which is the last of the Bretonnians, and it's really shit what happens to the Bretonnians. I'll get to that at the end, but sorry for swearing, but it's really crap. If you're a Bretonnian like yourself,
Bretonnian.
I can't even say it now. Player, you're not going to be very happy, I don't think.
I'm going in, taking me bat and ball then.
Yeah, because it's really sad and it's really rubbish at the same time. It's one of the things I don't like about this book. But moving on, the dwarves, yay, in my opinion. These are the last of the dwarves basically, the Throng of Doom, Slayer King and this Gottfried Hammerson. They're the last of the dwarves. There's some Slayers, there's some Zuthbar guys. That's it. But they make it through to the last battles in the book. So there's a lot of dwarf action going on in the background of what's going on. They make a good account of themselves to the dwarves in this book. As you can probably tell I'm talking, it's pretty fine on what I'm saying. So this is the guy, Scar Bloodwraith. I quite like him actually. It's the first time I've ever seen him. I'm not sure it's going to be the last time we've ever seen him because Korn likes him a lot and keeps resurrecting him. So I won't be surprised if we see him in 40k, for instance. So this is the Berserker Onslaught. This was the one I was telling you about.
Oh, right, yeah.
Where you might want to do this army.
Okay.
Because you like Archaon and you like Korn. So this would be like the perfect sort of army. So this is the bit where basically we're in chapter 1, and you think when you start reading, you think Averheim's going to stand out for ages through the book because there's a lot of book left. Doesn't. Chapter 1 it gets destroyed. Archaon turns up after the Emperor's destroyed the siege weapons. Archaon turns up, and he basically brings all these armies of Korn with him, and just charges at the walls. And that's it. And over the course of one night, there's that much dead piled up against the wall. He just walks over them into the city. So there's some heroic actions going on. The dwarves make a stand against unsurmountable odds, but keep going. And a surprise return, because what the Emperor does, he sends for help the last place he can send for help, which is Nagash. But Nagash ignores him.
Yeah. He's too busy keeping off.
Yeah, he's too busy having a bit of a sleep and a rest. Which I'll get to my second big bugbear about this book, but he's too busy having a rest and just not bothering about anything. But Vlad von Karstein does respond, even though Nagash doesn't say he can. And he takes Balthazar Gelt with him. Balthazar Gelt redeems himself in this book. he manages, because Vlad's been injured by the Glotkin, the hold he's got over Gelt slips, and the voice in Gelt's mind telling him to use the undead magic gets caged. So Gelt gains back control really over his former self, and when he comes to the Emperor's aid at Averheim, basically the incarnate of metal, the wind of metal, becomes one with him, just like the rest of the incarnates, because he's refound himself and he becomes a hell of a lot stronger than he even was before.
Wow.
In the lore of metal. But in this scene, this is Cilia, the Chaos Spawn, fighting against the Slayer King. And Cilia gets... Basically, it's a bit of a draw, the battle. Ended up with Cilia getting kicked off the battlements with a big gash in his side. But as he's a Chaos Spawn, that's not necessarily enough to kill him. But the Slayer King survives that one. I'm trying to think where we're up to. I'm using the book as a prompt. So yeah, that battle ends up with Archaon facing up against the Emperor. And Archaon destroys his hammer, which makes the Emperor lose the grip on the Wind of Heavens. So he loses all his power and just becomes a man again. So basically Archaon is literally about to kill him when Gelt and the dwarves turn up. Using mystical means, Gelt basically transmutes them all into metal, gold, through the earth as a river and back up. That's how powerful he's become. It takes a lot of energy to do it, but he manages to turn up and help the Emperor. So then the Slayer King fights Archaon, and that's a bit of a battle going on. But they're completely surrounded by enemies and outnumbered. So Gelt knows they need to buy them time, so his next bit of magic is to create a wall. He summons all the metal in the city, from the dead armour that people have got, from the weapons they've got, all the bits of metal that's around. He builds a wall between them and the most of the Chaos Horde. And the dwarves and the Slayers manage to finish off anyone that's got separated from the Chaos guys inside the wall. And Archaon gets split up from the Slayer King, so both of them are sort of screaming at the wall because both of them want to fight. What do you do that for, kind of thing. He's like, he's going, what do you do that for, lad? He said, and the Emperor's like, you couldn't have won. No, one incarnate cannot stand against Archaon. So obviously at this point, Slayer King is the incarnate of fire. He's got the fire magic in him. Not that he even realises that. He thinks it's his ancestor spirits. But basically, Gelt uses so much of his power, and every time someone bangs on the wall, it's giving him a headache. So there's all these guys trying to knock this wall down, and he's going, oh my god, it's like someone giving him a migraine, basically. And they're like, well, we've got to get out of here, basically. No way to do it. It's the same way Gelt rescued the Emperor, is to turn them into metal and transmute themselves. But he doesn't have enough power to take everyone. So the Slayer King tells the Emperor, I'm staying behind them. Me and my Slayers will stay behind, give them a good fight, and then you guys can get away. Take your manlings, take my guys from Zufbar, some of the dwarves go with them, the runesmith goes, and they leave. Vlad turns up too late because he's come to help them, because there is honour in Vlad, and I like Vlad, there's honour in him, and deep down he doesn't want the Empire to fall as such, and he's an elect count from one of the previous books, and he feels drawn to help them. That's one of his main reasons. One of more of his redeeming. He's a statesman. He's a leader. He's not just a monster like Manfred, for instance. He is a leader. He still thinks about other things than himself. And yeah, it's a shame he doesn't turn up to help them in time. But when he doesn't, he turns around and heads back. And that's basically, they get split from Gelt then. So we don't see those guys together for a bit now. So the Slayer King makes his last stand. We don't see what actually happened in the battle. We just know that as Vlad's watching, he sees this massive torrent of fire come up from the city. As the wind of fire gets released, and you can see his face in the fire, this huge dwarf face with a beard and everything. So God only knows what the Slayer King actually did to them all, but he probably incinerated half the city, didn't it? So he went down fighting, which was good on him. He finally got his wish. But it's quite sad to see the Slayer King go. It's quite sad whenever the character dies that you like. So I was quite sad by the end of this book, anyway. So again, this goes on about the undead. And basically, there's a demonic invasion of Sylvania next. So Nurgle, affronted by the undead, attacks Sylvania, and he raises a champion to help him. That champion, if no one knows already, is Isabella von Karstein. He seals a demon within her, so she's part demon, part what she used to be, and then sends her with a demonic host against Sylvania. So first person she starts. That's the other thing. Nameless One's with them as well. Nameless One has taken over Luther Huss. Is it Huss? Luther? The Sigmarite priest.
Yeah.
And Luther Huss. That's Lionel Hutz. I'm thinking of Simpsons. Luther Huss. He's taken over his body and he's trapped him in his mind. So there's a whole thing going on there. The Nameless One's controlling all these things. He's like a puppet master, if you will. So he's sided with Chaos as well, even though he's one of Nagash's Mortarchs. He's turned against Nagash because Nagash didn't fulfill his promises. Vlad's considering turning against Nagash because he's not fulfilled his promises, but he's looking at the bigger picture as well. So Manfred fights Isabella and the Nameless One, and his hubris sort of gets him in trouble again.
Ooh.
And his forces get annihilated, even though he outnumbers them like 10-1 or something like that. He doesn't realise Isabella's in the army, that's the problem. So when he sees her, he's like, what the hell? He only thinks he's fighting the Nameless One. So it goes down really bad. And she's got the ability to melt people by touching them. Basically, Nurgle's given her this ability to corrupt anything just by touching it. So she melts things.
Oh.
So anyway, Vlad turns up as well, but by this time Manfred's army's been destroyed. Who else is there? There's a couple of other vampires there as well. Harkon's there. That's the one I was thinking of, the mad guy. He's there too, even though Manfred tries to get him killed.
Luther Harkon.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's where I'm getting the Luthers mixed up and stuff. So they make their final stand in an inn called the Dead and Buried. Yeah, Defenders of the Dead and Buried. So we have Vlad von Karstein, Manfred von Karstein, Luther Harkon, and they're fighting against Isabella the Accursed and the Nameless One. So, long story short, the Defenders don't do very well. Harkon gets killed because Manfred betrays him. Manfred escapes. Vlad, because of the curse from the Glockkin that he's got, he's still weak and he's coughing up blood, and every time he exerts himself, the curse sort of starts to rot his body and take it over with the Glockkin curse. So he can't exert himself too much. But he gets buried under this mountain of corpses. Then Isabella and everything turns up, which surprises the hell out of him, and she asks him to join. Just before this, though, I missed a bit. Vlad fights the Nameless One, but what he does, he knows he can't beat him, so he summons a horde of zombies. So the Nameless One's like, what are you doing? I'm just going to take control of these. So he takes control of these zombies and stuff. Vlad uses the opportunity to break into the Nameless One's, Luther's mind, and free him from the Nameless One. So, because he's a Sigmarite priest, as he frees himself, this glowing orb comes around him and it destroys the Nameless One completely. So then the Sigmarite priest and Vlad go fighting against the rest of the zombies, but Isabella kills the priest, jumps on his horse, rips his throat out. This is the first time Vlad and Isabella have met. It's the first time I think Vlad even realises she's come back. It's very awkward in a way. Because she's like, join me kind of thing, join us and we can, Nurgle will accept you as you've already got the Nurgle curse inside you, he'll accept you kind of thing. So Vlad's like, well, what do I do? And then he comes up with the only answer he can do. He says no. So she kills him.
Oh. Heck.
And he lets her, he puts his sword down, says you'll have to destroy me. So she does. She puts her hands on his face and the curse kills him.
Blimey.
Yeah. So she attacks the... she sends her force forward. Ark of the Black's defending now. We're going up against the forces of Nagash, big time. Archaon's not even that worried because he knows he outnumbers her. What he doesn't realise is there's another army that's got involved. Yep, my good friend Dickett Claw is currently burrowing underneath Sylvania to come up underneath the Black Pyramid with a Skaven army. And this is the big surprise Nagash gets in the book. This is the guy I'm on about as well, so I'll skip ahead a little bit. Yes, this is the battle at the Dead and Buried. So yeah, Archaon the Black and the Horned Rat. So there we go. Guardians of the Pyramid versus the Army of Blight with Dickett Claw there as well. But he's at, I don't know, this is a bit of an odd thing because he's not actually in the battle, he's burrowed into the ground, digging into the pyramid, while Isabella walks towards the pyramid. And Nurgle himself takes an interest in this battle, because just as all his demons are being destroyed, he looks down and he thinks, oh, I might help him out a bit. So he pours his cauldron over the fight, basically. And the gaps in reality split open, and this rain comes down from his cauldron of this gloopy stuff, which causes this quagmire that all the skeletons and zombies sink into and disappear forever, and summons plague bearers from it. So it's like, all your armies now belong to us. it's a very odd battle between...
All your bases are ours.
Yeah, all your bases belong to us. It's a very much a weird battle, because when you think Nurgle fighting the undead, it's like zombies fighting, you know, demons that can't feel pain and zombies that don't feel pain. Neither of them feel fear, so it's just like... It's like the eternal stalemate. But either way, Isabella von Karstein makes it to near to the pyramid as she can. Archaon the Black intervenes, but she kills him.
Oh.
Yeah, and the Suffalux kills Krell. He eats him. Yeah, kills him and eats him. So Krell and Archaon both fall at this point. Nagash wakes up. You can tell he's none too pleased. He joins the battle, incinerates the greater demon, incinerates a ton of the forces. Isabella's like, oh crap, what happens now? And just that moment, the pyramid explodes. And Nagash is like, what?
No!
Because Dickett Claw's purpose was to mine into the pyramid and blow it up, and it's exactly what he did. It didn't go quite to plan, he had to teleport himself out of there. Because one of the guys that was handling the bombs was like, he started ticking, what do I do? He's like, see you later. So the pyramid goes up. So Nagash is a little bit like, oh.
I left my toast in. I left my beans on the hob.
You can imagine the look on Nagash's face was like,
my beans!
What do I do?
Toast!
So he goes absolutely berserk, does Nagash. You know,
I'm not surprised someone's just blown his home up.
He literally goes berserk and just annihilates everything on the battlefield. In one go. He just goes boom. So it just nukes it. And Isabella gets thrown miles. All the demons get dispelled. And it doesn't affect forces of the undead. But he's none too happy. And Manfred and Nefertiti can... Nefertati or whatever her name is. Nefra, what's it? She doesn't play a very big role in this, but that's the Siege of the Black Pyramid. That goes through everything I just said. So at this point, Nagash realises he's screwed. He can't follow through with his plans, basically. There's Isabella standing off against him. Didn't end how we thought it would end.
I'm going to stab your toe with my sword.
Yeah, Nagash didn't quite win that in confrontation, but neither did she, to be honest. Ends up, basically, Nagash decides, right, I've no choice now, I've got to ally myself with the rest of the incarnates. So, he's quite decisive about it, he just uproots everything and goes to meet them. He leaves Nefertiti in charge of Sylvania and takes Manfred with him. And they all go off to find the rest of them. Chapter 3, Hope Reborn. So this is basically the refugees from Averheim. They've decided to make their way towards the woodland realm of Athelloren, the last safe place in the entire old world. Possibly the entire world. The elves have had their own problems. They've been fighting off beastmen and demon incursions. Of course, they're allied now, but that alliance is a bit more fraught than you might think. A lot of problems are going on between them. The king and the queen just don't like each other, basically. That's the thing, they don't trust each other, so there's no intimacy and nothing like that between them.
That's Malekith and...
Yeah, and
Archaon.
Whatever her name is. We'll get to her later anyway. So they've got their own problems. They're fighting demon incursions. Be'lakor himself takes a massive interest in what's going on there.
Oh, he's still around, is he?
Oh, Be'lakor, yeah, for the moment. He takes interest in what's going on there. He wants to destroy the Oak of Ages. He's pissed off at Archaon. Archaon's busy doing something in Middenheim, which we'll get to. But he wants to do something even grander than Archaon. He wants to usurp the Oak of Ages.
Right.
And change the weave and change the entire world to his will for the Dark Gods. So he turns the last of the Dark Elves, the witches and stuff, led by Helibron, against the rest of them. And he turns the wild treemen and wild dryads against the elves and gets them to attack with demon allies. So, and he does it straight into the heart of the kingdom in one final attempt to get to the Oak of Ages. This is where Teclis's plans come to fruition as well. Teclis has turned up there with his dead brother and all the powers he's gathered through the other books. And long story short, there's a massive battle, and Be'lakor gets to this Oak of Ages, sticks his hand into it, starts to corrupt it, and he can feel the darkness corrupting the weave. He can feel it bending to his will. And then Tyrion comes walking out the tree. He died in book 3. He goes, hello, and he's basically the incarnate of light. Teclis took the light from his staff and resurrected his brother using the Ariel's body and the god's power he stole from Middenheim, and everything else that he's got, he used it to resurrect Tyrion. Tyrion comes walking out the tree with this burning light, which just the image of him burns Be'lakor. So Be'lakor's like, oh my god. He's like, what the hell do I do? And Malekith, the leader of the Dryads, actually realised she's been betrayed at that point, because she just thought that Be'lakor wanted to get the elves and basically give their souls to Slaanesh, so she didn't care. But to kill the Oak of Ages, that would kill her as well. So she's actually attacking Malekith at this point. She got his dragon down. She's fighting him. He's been poisoned previously in a fight. It looks like he's had it. And then she turns to have a look at Be'lakor and see what she's doing. She turns to attack Be'lakor. Malekith, being the clever one in this entire book, takes the opportunity, just takes her head off, basically. He knows exactly she's going to sort of defend the tree, but he also knows what a liability she is, and he can't trust her, because she'll turn against him as soon as she's... So he takes the opportunity just to end her, and then goes to help himself. But Tyrion turns up. So Tyrion manages to push Be'lakor back, and Be'lakor runs off, scurrying into the shadows. Meanwhile, the survivors have made it to Athelloren, and the Queen, thinking that they were going to turn up, sort of like sends a message to the spirits and the elves that the other incarnates are probably going to come here. It's the last safe place. So to let them through as best they can. So the dwarves and the humans, probably against the better judgment, and the Bretonnians, all come to Athelloren. They've got to be really careful, but they're followed by Scar, Bloodwraith, who's been resurrected. And Be'lakor tries to stop him. He goes, look, we need time to sort this out. He's like, would you postpone your attack? And Scar Bloodwraith is like, no, I don't take orders from you. And actually speeds up and tries to catch up with them even quicker. So he intercepts them actually in the edges of Athelloren near a chasm. And Balthazar Gelt, in a way to try and... He's still trying to redeem himself. He's had a word with the Emperor, and the Emperor's like, thanks for coming to my aid. And the Emperor's like, have you found yourself now? And he's like, yes, I've found myself, I've come back. And he's like, good. I need all the help we can get. And he says, I want to redeem myself. He's like, well, in time I think we'll all redeem ourselves at this. What's going on? But at this point he decides he's going to make a final stand against Hordes of Chaos on his own to protect the Emperor and everyone else. But what's also happened on this journey, because he's the incarnate of metal, the dwarf's weapons and armour and the runes that they've got are functioning like it. twice their efficiency when he's near them. And on the journey there, all the dwarves are like whispering that he's like the reincarnation, one of their ancestors, and the dwarves are like, this can't be possible because he's a human, you know. And then he's helped them out a lot over the course, and the dwarves begin to respect him. There's this respect that builds up and this sort of awe around him. So when he says he's going to stand, the dwarves go, well, we're not going to leave you. We'll stand with you.
Wow.
So these guys, the dwarves are ace. They stand with Gelt, and big battle ensues at the chasm. And Gelt, well, basically, the dwarves are blasting the Cornate forces which are attacking, and Bloodwraith makes a charge against their lines. They don't realise the danger that they're in, because everyone around him gets killed, but he keeps charging on, ignoring the bullets that are hitting him and everything. He's coming, he just wants to destroy things, he's charging at them. They just think he's a lone berserker. But Gelt realises the damage that he could do because of how powerful he is. So he creates his orb of gold and hurls it at Scar Bloodwraith. And that gets bigger and bigger as it goes along, and engulfs him and turns him into solid gold. And then he keeps going and hits the guys behind him and the guys behind them, turning them all into solid gold.
Right.
At which point the dwarves are like, whoa, how the hell did you do that? They're well impressed by him, kind of thing. Tell you who isn't impressed, Corn.
Yeah.
And he makes his non-impressedness known. Because he actually intervenes in the battle himself.
Right.
I mean, the gods are fickle.
So he did put his foot down and go squish.
It's very rare a god will interfere in the battle themselves. But this is the end times. He just takes his sword and swipes it across the chasm. As he does, the dwarves see all these weird images of what's going on. Everyone sees something different. But Gelt and the runesmith can both see the true thing, which is this huge sword coming down, cutting a big swathe across the trees, burning the trees as it comes, burning the land. Then it hits the gold spell that Gelt's cast and dispels it completely. The dwarves that are near the sword when it just get automatically killed outright. And then off he goes. That's it. That's all Crone does, goes whoosh with his sword and does everything Gelt does. And this horde of chaos just descends upon them. So it's then into a shield wall battle, and it deteriorates a bit from there. All goes a bit wrong. But the elves turn up with a host of fire, as it's called. And the big battle ensues. The phoenixes come and the elves help the dwarves out. And in the battle, Caradrin gets personal combat with Scar Bloodwraith. Big fight ensues between them. Bloodwraith kills his phoenix, which upsets him very, very much. And the Wind of Fire, which has been looking for an owner since it left the dwarf Slayer King, finds one in him. So he becomes the incarnate of fire and destroys Scar Bloodwraith again. And resurrects his phoenix using the flame. Because a phoenix at the end of the day, isn't it?
Well, yeah, phoenix rise.
So that's the battle for the chasm. As I said, lots of spoilers. I'm going through this quite a lot because we've had quite a build up to this. This is the Host of Shadow and the Host of Life versus, this is the bit I told you about earlier, the Betrayers and Bellicor. So that's their forces. And Defence of the Eternal Glade. Which is all the stuff I told you about with the owls fight Bellicor. Okay, so I noticed that picture, the Witch King talking to Manfred. So the next incarnate turns up at the forest, which panics them all because this huge undead army arrives. So they array all their forces to fight it or see what's going on. This bit's quite funny. Actually, I'll show you this bit. I find it funny. The Great Nagash, Eternal Sovereign Lord of Necro, Lord of the Underworld, Supreme Lord of the Undead, would like to parley. It made me laugh.
The Gash just goes parlay.
That's straight out of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
It made me laugh. That was a pretty good bit. So there was a big discussion at the council on what they should do in a gash, basically, because some of them think they should let him help them. Some of them think that they should just kill him and let the power go to somebody else. But the gash just sits there and watches them argue over him.
You're just going to argue over him.
Yeah, Ark and the Black
I want
sat
him.
next to
No, I want him.
They're just basically arguing whether they should trust him or not. And he just goes, well, I won't betray you. A word's my bond kind of thing, you know. I'm not going to betray you. So, and they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Malachite's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like, I've never said that. And he goes, okay, I'll give you a gift. So next to him is Archaon the Black. Remember, Archaon killed the Ever Queen and Tyrion's daughter, who are two of the incarnates in there. So Archaon the Black's like, sat next to him. I will give you the architect of your daughter's murder. And to do with as you please, basically. So Manfred's like, yes, finally, I've got Archaon the Black out of the way. So Nagash goes, yeah, so you tortured your daughter and you murdered your daughter. So here you go, there's Manfred. Because he did, kind of. He tortured her, didn't kill her, but they don't know Archaon the Black killed her. They still assume because Manfred was the one that had her. So Manfred's like, what the? So he puts him in this purple cocoon and says that he has a gift. You can have him. Manfred's like, what? So they accept, actually, and Manfred gets put into this prison underneath the earth, basically where a tree will feed on him until he dissolves to nothing, which will take hundreds and hundreds of years. And he's got shackles on him, so he can't use his magic powers to escape, and he's stuck, basically. We'll get to him later. Then he gets a visit. A guy in a hood walks in, and he goes, remember me, the guy that you left at the Dead and Burning Inn to get killed? He holds up the Von Carstein ring. It's Vlad. He said, yeah, you can't kill me, kind of thing. So Vlad's because the Von Carstein ring resurrects him. So it's resurrected him and it's cured him of the plague. Oh. So he's now at his full strength again. Ooh. So he's like, hiya, see you later. So he's sat at Nagash's left hand and Archaon's at his right hand. Because Nagash trusts Vlad more than Manfred. Because Nagash knows that Vlad's got something more to live for than just himself. He's got honour, he's got this. He still knows that he'll be on his own end at the end of the day, but he trusts him more. He trusts him a little bit more because he's got his own honour and stuff to deal with. Whereas Manfred's just only cares about himself. So he's quite happy to trade him off. And forget where we're up to now.
That looked like Archaon.
Yeah. Alright, so anyway. Moving on. Bellacor's still hanging about. Yeah. He senses something weird below this tree, so he goes down, has a look. There's Manfred. You know, he's like, oh, okay. And Manfred's like, let me go! Let me out of here immediately, because Manfred's not going to beg. He's like, let me out of here. And Bellacor's like, well, you know, what's in it for me? Anyway, previously at council, Manfred was there. He knows something that they don't know about their own lore, basically. He knows that the goddess, Lilith, is actually the Lady of the Lake. Oh. He's the only one that knows that. Then the goddess Lilith, the one that's orchestrated this whole thing, and is now mortal because she's spent all her power making the Haven in book 3. She's there with them, standing with them. She knows they can't win, but she thinks, well, we can give the Chaos Gods a good fight and it gives the Haven more chance to survive. So Jared, obviously the leader of the Britonians, is there as well. Mm. So he sees some chance for mischief. So basically, he tells Be'lakor, this prophetess that's there, this last of the pantheon of the elder gods, she's also the Bretonnian Lady of the Lake, and she's got this haven that she's protecting, creating a new world under your nose. And Be'lakor's like, what? So Be'lakor, obviously, he's like, yeah, okay, I'll let you go. And he goes off to orchestrate some more plans for himself. Manfred, really annoyed that he can't vent his anger at Nagash, decides, well, because Be'lakor made me squirm, I'm going to make him squirm now and interrupt his plans, because I know he'll be planning against them now for that. So he seeks out Jared, the Bretonnian knight, and tells him the truth. Your entire society is based on a lie. The Lady of the Lake's actually an elven prophetess who's just been playing with you all these years.
Ooh.
At first he's like, this guy's a liar kind of thing, but since he's got her, since he's met her, he's felt this connection with her he didn't understand, this familiarity. And everything just clicked into place when Manfred tells him the truth. Yeah, Bretonnia, it was built on a lie, guess what, you're just expendable fodder for the elves.
Ooh.
And he lets Manfred go, he says, I never want to see you again, get out of here. Manfred could have killed him at any time, but Manfred was just playing with him. So he goes back to confront the prophetess, just as Manfred thought he would. I want to speak to her kind of thing. She comes out, because she's normally in the council and she's protected. So he's given Be'lakor the chance to kill her, find out her secrets, take her to Slaanesh, get a big reward. But now he's actually played the other thing and put a Bretonnian knight in the way.
Oh.
So he's getting his own back on Be'lakor, if you will, and everyone else. That's all Manfred cares about, he's loose cannon. The Bretonnian knight Jared confronts the prophetess, and then basically he's not too happy. She confirms everything's true, that yes, she was indeed the Lady of the Lake, and she needed basically the Bretonnians to protect and sacrifice themselves to build the haven that she's built, which she's now lost contact with, and thinks the Chaos Gods have destroyed it.
Right.
So yeah, basically your entire life has been based on a lie, and it's all been for nothing.
Oh.
Basically, that's what it comes down to. So he pulls his sword out, he's really not happy. He's like, and she's like, look, if you want to kill me, just kill me. He pulls his sword out, he's like ready to strike her. And you don't know whether he will or not. Because Be'lakor panics and thinks, oh, my prize is going to get killed, so he intervenes. So he fights the knight. He doesn't realise Jared's got this magic weapon anyway, you can fight demons with. So the big fight ensues. Causes enough ruckus for the incarnates to be alerted, basically. Even though he crushes Jared's leg and blinds him. It causes enough ruckus. And Malekith and Tyrion turn up. And Be'lakor's like, oh crap, I can't fight two of them. So Tyrion grabs him with his chains and stuff, but he fights him off. And then he's about to absorb himself into shadow. But you forget who the Lord of Shadow is, it's Malekith, he just stops him. Like, where are you going? Then Tyrion grabs him with these sort of light shackles, and it's like, you're going nowhere, mate. So they capture Be'lakor.
Right.
And later on they interrogate him as well, as to what's going on and what the plans are. Because one of the big problems they've got is they're all together, but no one knows what the hell to do. No one can agree on a course of action, mainly because nobody knows what Archaon's doing. But now they've got Be'lakor, they're going to interrogate him.
Well, Be'lakor set Archaon on his path, though.
Yeah.
Technically.
So Be'lakor can tell them what's going on.
Yeah, because he's setting all this, like, prophecy up.
So Be'lakor turns up in his chamber, and he's had his arse handed to him, he's got his horns broken, and he's been beaten up, his wings are ripped, and everyone looks at Malekith and Tyrion. Apart from Nagash, you realise it's actually the Everqueen that's had him beaten up.
Right.
Yeah. Because she wanted to send a message, and she's got no feelings about Chaos Demons, basically. So she has him beaten up and brought before them. Not that she needed to, because Be'lakor is only too happy to reveal Archaon's plans to them. If in any way it disrupts Archaon's plans. So basically, they can't kill him, because if they kill him, he'll return to the realm of chaos.
Yeah.
And they tell the gods everything's happened and just come back. So they entrap him in a ruby in the Queen's crown to be there for eternity, basically. Meanwhile, Archaon, being the kind soul he is, has had an argument with the Bloodthirster. The Bloodthirster's getting really annoyed at not actually fighting anything. So Archaon's wound him up enough and sent him on a blood hunt, basically, to manipulate him, basically, into going on a blood hunt after the Emperor. So basically, all the forces of Cron turn up Alpha Lauren on a blood hunt. And basically, it's like Avengers Assemble now.
I was reading this. At the page
I was reading this, I was like, this is like Avengers.
Yeah.
Because basically all these guys are fighting together against. It's like Avengers.
Yeah.
So is. Incarnates assemble. So they fight against the Blood Hunt, basically. Kambana, that's the guy. And again, I'm sure that's the guy from 40k, but he sounds familiar. Korak sounds familiar as well. Anyway, big battle ensues. Blood Hunt's unleashed. During the council sessions, they discussed the possibility of just going and teleporting themselves. After they found out Archaon's plans, they just thought, well, we need to all go and teleport ourselves to Mindenheim, face Archaon together, even though we've not got the last of the incarnates, because we don't know where the Wind of Beasts has gone. And Gelt's like, well, we can do that, but I'm not powerful enough to send us all there. And I don't have that kind of power. But the goddess thinks it's the best idea. Anyway, battle ensues, and the hand is basically forced. The goddess sacrifices herself. She gets Teclis to stab her, basically, and use her blood to enact the spell. It's Teclis, another betrayal from Teclis, basically. He kills the goddess he's been serving at her request. And then he tries to put all his power together to teleport. Everyone's got split up at this point. Everyone's fighting their own little battles. Nagash won't accept help from anybody, but he can crush Bloodthirster just by going... He's not helping anyone, but he's not actually accepting help either. Vlad defends the prophetess and stuff, because why not? Because she's like, why are you defending me? And he just points at Nagash and goes, well, I have nothing else to do. He doesn't need help. Archaon's just fought him with the battle. Archaon the Black, he's just fought him with the battle going, I don't want to help anyone. But he does help the dwarf out. He just kills this guy that's attacking them. So it's quite an intricate battle. I won't go through everything that happens in it, because I've gone through a lot already. And I don't want to spoil everything if you want to read this, but there's a lot going on. It just reminds me of Avengers Assemble. It's brilliant, actually. It's really well written. I couldn't put it down when I was reading it. One thing I didn't mention, after the Praetorian Knights find out the truth, they just leave.
They just left.
Yeah, Jared tells them all the truth. And so they get on their horses and leave.
You can't blame them.
They'll send the Bretonians, because we never hear from them again.
Oh, you can't blame them.
Yeah. They've been used, they're fed up, that's it, we're off. But the prophetess sacrifices herself so they can teleport themselves there. And Gelt's trying to grab the Winds of Magic and he can't. He's not Gelt, Teclis is trying to grab the Winds of Magic to do this spell. It was Gelt's idea, but Teclis is trying to do it using the blood of the prophetess, using all of his power that he's got. And the Emperor stood with him, and the Emperor just goes, you can do this, puts his hand on his shoulder, and then Teclis sees everything that's going on. He can see all the incarnates, he harnesses the power, he grabs each one of them, they're like beacons of light in his vision. He grabs each one of them, he sees the Emperor for who he really is. He's like, oh, that makes sense, because he can see his hand on his shoulder in his vision, there's glowing golden light about him. You can see who he really is then. Up to this point where Tyrion's known who he was. And he throws them basically across the world. And then he grabs as many people as he can with his spell to help them. and hurls them as well. And then he blacks out. And then he wakes up. He finds himself in chains. And he looks up, and there's Archaon looking at him. Telling him he's travelled a long way to die.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So this, I think this is the bit where he does his spell. Yeah. There you go. You've journeyed a long way to die, elf. So what happens next, you ask? Well, Tyrion's Tethys' spell was actually very successful. Very successful. It worked. But he just lost control at the last minute where he teleported himself. So he ended up in the hands of Archaon. But everyone else ended up there, separated across the city of Middenheim with their armies. All 8 of the incarnates. All 8 of the incarnates.
Including the beasts?
Yes.
So,
I mean, it was going to happen because that's what the spell was designed to do, grab the incarnates, and it did do that. So this is the point where we find out all the armies have turned up in one city. There's a huge battle, and that might give you an idea of who the 8th incarnate is. It's Grimgor Ironhide. So there's some very cool battles in this bit. I don't really want to go through every single thing that happens in this because it's quite epic. It'll take a long time. Sigvald dies, which is quite funny. Melka fights Ironhide because Ironhide's just an orc and he's not bothered about allying with them. And Skaven set them up so they fight each other. But Melka swallows his pride and kneels before Grimgor Ironhide and basically says, I can't beat you, you're better than me. So Grimgor's like, Grimgor's the best. And he goes, no, actually. So this is off of it. He's like, why? He's like, well, this guy came into fight called Archaon and he thinks he's the best. So, you know, well, he's the best. And Grimgor's right. So Grimgor Ironhide goes off to fight Archaon. And he takes Melkath and the elves along with him because Melkath convinces him. Melkath's brilliant at this kind of thing. And more battles ensue across the city. Lots of people get killed, characters and stuff. I'm not going completely into it. We'll move along a bit. There's Sigvald, that's where he gets killed. Sigvald fights Krell, that's a nice piece of artwork actually. Krell hits him in the face with the axe, which doesn't do his looks any good. Nagash has to abandon his army to join the other incarnates. And the forces of good basically get whittled down bit by bit. Manfred turns up because he's run off after his incident in the forest. He turns up at Middenheim. He pledges service to Archaon. And he's wandering around the battlefield and he meets Vlad from last time. And Vlad's like, well, have you come to help me or have you come to kill me? He's like, neither, I've come to watch. Kind of thing. And Vlad's basically, look, you're going to have to pick a side. It comes down to you're going to have to pick a side. Isabella's there as well. And Isabella and Vlad meet one last time. Which is quite poignant in the story.
Mm-hmm.
This is the bit where they fight each other. And the battle at Ulrich's Bones. This is where we find out who the Emperor is. He fights the demon and gets knocked into the church where Archaon made his throne, basically. Archaon's not there now, he's gone to the place where the artefact is. The artefact which is buried under Middenheim. The artefact which is designed to destroy the world, which is what Archaon's plan has been all along, to destroy the world. using this artifact, which is basically a giant black globe, which will create a rift under the ground. So when the Emperor ends up in Archaon's throne room, Archaon's not there. But what is there is his hammer. And the second he grabs the hammer, he becomes who he really was. And this is where we find out the Emperor actually died in Book 3, when he fought the Glockkin. And when he was hit by the twin-tailed comet, all it did was release Sigmar from the vortex of the comet. And as soon as he's reunited with the hammer, he becomes Sigmar himself. So, and gains all of his powers back plus extra. At which point they all kick the crap out of the demon. Not before he kills Caradrin, the incarnate fire, though. So he kills him. So that's one of them down already before they face Archaon. So then it builds up to the final battle. They go underground, fight a load more battles before they get to Archaon. And we have the Incarnate's host, now with Grimgor Ironhide added, with extra Grimgor. And then Archaon receives reinforcements straight through the rift of everything you can possibly imagine from the gods, one of everything, from each side, basically. So the massive battle happens underground, underneath Middleheim, where they've dug up this artifact in this huge cavern. This is the last battle for the Warhammer world, basically. And to sum it up, it's epic and well worth a read, even if I tell you what happens. But it's basically called The End of All Things for a very good reason. So, face-off one is Grimgor Ironhide versus Archaon, just like in Storm of Chaos. Grimgor headbutts Archaon and smashes the third eye on his helm. And then Archaon takes his head off, killing Grimgor Ironhide, killing the next incarnate. So that's 2 incarnates down. Then the Emperor fights him. Sigmar, Karl Franz, whichever one you want to call him, fights Archaon. And this is where the real battle happens between those two. And a lot goes down in between as well. A lot of battles of fighting. Melkath frees Teclis from his chains. And the mage tries to get his staff and his sword back from this Chaos Cultist that's had them. And Archaon gets thrown off the edge of one of these cracks that's appeared, because as this rift's getting bigger, causing earthquakes and cracks to appear in the world itself. He gets thrown down one of these chasms by Sigmar. At which point they've reconvened, Chaos has been defeated at this point, and they're all stood around a rift. They're missing 2 of their incarnates. So they decide that they can stop the rift using the combined power of all 8 winds of magic. So there's 7 of them there. Teclis knows they need 8, and he knows what he does will probably destroy him, so he takes on the Wind of Fire and the Wind of Beast himself. And it's slowly dissolving him, basically destroying his body. The others are focusing their power on the rift. You know, ideally they'd have another wizard there with them to help them. And it's all on a knife edge, and they're beginning to bring the power of the rift under control, but it's killing Teclis to do it. And then another wizard turns up, and it's Manfred. He snuck his way down there, thinking of Vlad's words, I need to pick a side. So he's walking around, looking at them all. They're all completely focused on trying to stop this rift. And he picks a side. He walks up behind Gelt and stabs him in the back, killing him. At which point the Wind of Metal is released into the whirling vortex, circling around it. Teclis tries to grab that as well, to pull that into his power, to hold them in place, which instantly kills him, because he can't hold 3 of them. And then Fire and Beast are also released back into this vortex. The vortex is growing in power because it can taste the magic around it. And because it's got these 3 powers, it can taste it once more. It absorbs the power out of all the other incarnates. All of their magic gone. The gash basically turns to dust because it was what was keeping him alive. Melketh gets hit pretty hard by it because for 7,000 years he's had the ability to cast magic, and it just gets torn out of him and he feels really weak and powerless. It doesn't affect the others quite as much. In fact, it helps the Everqueen because she's connected to the weave and she can feel the pain of the world that's been destroyed. So her concentration wanes. So as soon as that comes away, it actually focuses her a bit more. But at the same time, she feels really alone now because she's had this connection. The gods reward Manfred by blinding him and making him go mad. So he's wandering around, adult brain, can't see what he's doing. Tyrion walks over and kills him because he's had enough of him. Archaon climbs back up the rift where he's been holding on to and grabs the Emperor, and the Emperor and him have a massive struggle. The two of them get torn into the rift as the rift expands. They throw themselves in, still fighting. I think everyone else is dead now. Yeah, that only leaves the three elves left, the Everqueen, Tyrion and Melketh. One of the pieces of wall comes flying away as everything's getting sucked into this rift now. And Melketh pushes the Everqueen out of the way because she's going to be hit by it. He gets hit by it himself, which breaks his legs. And he's lying on, he can't go anywhere, he's lying on the ground immobile now. He's been crushed, his legs have been crushed, he's no magic. Tyrion comes running over, not to him but to the Everqueen, picks her up, she's sort of half conscious. And they walk over to the edge of the abyss, and there's a discussion between them about how Melketh says, if it was you, I'd leave, run. And Tyrion's like, where are we going to go to? This is literally the end of the world. There's nothing left. So we get to the last parts of the book now. We are literally at the end. That's where Teclis is getting ripped apart. That's where Gelt gets killed. So there we have Tyrion and the Everqueen stood on the edge of the abyss, on the edge of the rift. So the rift expands and absorbs them. And Melketh is literally left on his own. And they leave him with the words that if the prophetess didn't really realise what she was doing in the power of the rift, and if she'd known, they could have used the rift to recreate the world as they wanted it. But as it is, the gods are going to use the rift to destroy the world. So it's the failings of the prophetess, it's the failings of the god that's come before, basically. They didn't realise that they could have used this thing for good. They're stood on the edge of abyss with no power to use it for good anymore. It gets absorbed and then they die. And then there's just pictures of the rift and stuff like that, and the way it's destroying the land and chaos is just running rampant. And before we get to that, the last bit is with Melketh, if you will. He falls into darkness as the rift expands over him, and he's reminded of all of his past deeds, of his pain and all the treachery he's done. I think it says it on this bit that we've passed. No? Is it that bit? And eventually all his memories fall away, and he even forgets his own name. And then the laughter in the background of the gods fades as well, and there's only darkness. And then we get to the last passage of the book, which has been linked on the internet, so people probably read it. But hopefully that will show up on there. So feel free to pause the video and read this. Yeah. Hopefully that's coming out in the video. Yeah. The last passage is basically the end of the world. Everything falls into chaos. Everyone dies. The world is destroyed. Bang, it's gone. And all that's left is this. What does it say exactly? A speck of light tumbling through the infinite darkness. Through the storm of nothingness he fell, adrift from unseen tides. It does say up here it used to be a man as well. Now whether that's being poetic, it just means any male, or does it mean human, as in like the Emperor or Archaon or Manfred or Nagash were all human as such? Does it mean one of them?
Does it mean Malekith?
I think it does. I think that's the most like. I think it's more poetic. It used to be a man, as in a male, or used to be exist as a creature, and he falls through space. No memory, no void. He falls into the darkness, and uses all of his power to grab onto this piece of light. It could still mean the Haven, because the prophetess only assumed the Haven was destroyed several times in the book to try and reinforce the point. It isn't the Haven, isn't the Haven, isn't what we said in book 3. But maybe they're refusing too much to say it isn't that when it actually is. And the Haven was fine. She just lost her connection with it for whatever reason. Passed beyond her sight. Maybe it left. Maybe it grew to the point where it could leave, and it left before the world was destroyed so the gods wouldn't see it. Because it's still got that elf guy in there whose name I can't remember from the 3rd book. The protector she sent to look after it. So it could be him. In fact, up to reading the last page of this book, I thought it was him still. And it's only when I got to the Malekith bit I thought, well, maybe it's Malekith. Because he's come on a long journey. He's been around for 7,000 years. He's been good, he's been bad, he's been good, he's been bad. He's, in the end, he becomes the ever king of the Eternal King. He
learns to swallow his pride. He learns to put himself aside for a change, doesn't he, rather than being...
And his last act is to sacrifice himself to save the Ever Queen, even if it's only for a few minutes.
Even if he doesn't like her that much.
Yeah, that's just it. He doesn't even know why he did it. This part of him is good.
It's honourable.
And honourable. Even without his powers, even without his magic, part of him was still powerful enough to jump in the way of a rock to save someone. For no reason, because they're all going to die anyway, but only for a few minutes. If he even... All she got was like a few minutes with Tyrion alone. That was it. That's all she got from it. To hold hands and go into oblivion together. Malekith had to lie on the floor because of that. So he sacrificed himself at the end.
So she could have that precious time with the guy she loved.
So, Malekith, there you go. One of the best characters in Warhammer. Could he be the one that rebuilds it? Because I think it will get rebuilt. From what we've read here.
You said something about the Skaven as well, didn't you? That there was something wide open with what the Skaven
When the last
said.
White Dwarf, Skaven Blight got moved. Screech Vermicking turned and went, world's going to get destroyed. We're going to move Skaven Blight. That's why Skaven Blight and Thanquol aren't in this. And if Claw disappeared somewhere at the end of blowing up the pyramid, he was like, I'm off and teleported somewhere. So we don't know where he's ended up.
We know the Lizardmen have nicked off.
At the moment, the Lizardmen are the only race that's actually survived. We thought, Lizardmen, they're not going to be in the next edition. Oh, they've gone. Well, they're the only ones that are actually alive because they run off in their pyramid ships. Like ancient aliens. So they're still here. Some Skaven could have gone with them quite easily because they're fighting Skaven at that time. And don't forget, everything's fallen into the realm of chaos. Into the warp. And how often does that happen in 40k? For instance, we've got Drago, who's wandering around in the warp.
And he comes back every so often.
He can come back every so often. Anyone can come back from this. Everyone's going to look at this as the end of the Warhammer world, but it isn't in a way, because anyone can come back. Because everything's been enveloped by the warp, the dead, the living, everything. God of the Dead's been... So anyone could be resurrected. The gods have pretty much won. This is what happens when the gods win. They get bored and move on to something else. But the gods won this round. But it doesn't mean... Because Archaon and Sigmar fell into the warp. They could return.
Yeah.
Anyone can come back. So it's really open. Everyone thinks, oh, this is it. It's the end times. Have a big cry. But it isn't. because there's that many loopholes in the way the warp works, and time and space doesn't really exist there. And where was the Warhammer world anyway? Was it in the warp all along? Was it in real space? Where was it?
They won't really end it.
It says
but they were.
It's also a new beginning.
Yeah, they wouldn't end it like that if there wasn't going to be a new beginning. If they weren't thinking of doing something new and taking it in a new direction. So you just leave it at the end time.
It is the end of Warhammer as we know it, but it doesn't mean it's the end of Warhammer full stop.
No, it's the start of something else. It's the start of the next stage of Warhammer.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed reading this book. I would recommend anyone to read this. If they've got any interest in Warhammer at all, this is how it ends. This book, more than any of the other books, gives you all the information you need as to quite a lot of characters and how it ends. This version of their story. They could do a Marvel Universe thing and have different versions. You might get the Amazing Archaon or the Ultimate Archaon next. You know?
The undead Nagash.
Warhammer Infinity Wars. Anything can come out of this.
Civil War.
Yeah, Civil War. So the thing about Marvel is they're good about telling us what's going on. We know all the films that come out for the next 4 years.
4 million
Games
years.
Workshop won't tell us 4 minutes in advance what they're doing. That's the only problem. Things I didn't like about this book was how it ended for the Bretonians. It was a really sad ending for them.
Yeah.
It was really unfulfilling. If anyone's a Bretonian player, it's the most unfulfilling ending you can imagine.
Yeah.
Everything was a lie, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, right, but what about this? No, sorry. Or did the Knights redeem themselves? No.
They just died.
They just left, and that's it.
They probably came to the realisation of they were being duped anyhow, and that was probably the quest.
Yeah.
The quest is to realise that you're being duped.
Maybe.
And then they just nicked off and never came back, so...
It's a really unfulfilling end for them.
Yeah.
Another thing I'm disappointed with in this book is Nagash, really, because I had a lot of hopes for Nagash, a lot of things that he could have become, and he is very powerful. I know there's a lot of characters in it, it's a bit like in Avengers. He was a bit sidelined in a way. He had a big bit of the book, but he didn't really do much.
Him.
After having a whole book to himself at the beginning, and after having
a build-up of him coming out,
I just felt there'd be more in there, and I thought he might be the one who fights Archaon. I thought that would be more interesting, because the Emperor's predictable. I mean, to stop it being predictable, last time they had Grimgar Ironhide fight him. And again, they used that same thing in this.
But then they had the Emperor. His eye.
They had the Emperor killing him. But that was predictable.
It wasn't really the Emperor, it was Sigmar.
Sigmar.
I suppose, from what I've read in the Archaon book, the Archaon Ever Chosen, he does absolutely loathe Sigmar, so his whole intent is to defeat this kind of following of Sigmar, who he believes to be a joke, not real, made up. So for Sigmar to stand in front of him and go, "Hello Deirdrick, Castner, remember me?" That probably put the shits up him, basically. Yeah.
And I just think that Nagash should have done more in the final battle, because all he did was resurrect all the zombies to fight all the
and turn into
demons.
Dust.
And then he turned to dust. He didn't really do much in the final battle, to be honest.
He seems to be like the Phoenix in X-Men 3.
Yeah. he didn't get the speaking role at the end. he's got to stand there for a bit and destroy things and get destroyed himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a shame. But overall, it's a good book. It's not my favourite of the series. My favourite was probably Thanquol, to be honest, because I'm a big fan of the Skaven. So I enjoyed that one the most. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy this. I couldn't put it down. I said I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning reading this.
Well, you started in the late afternoon, didn't you? Really, when we got back from
I pretty much read it for 12 hours solid, along with like the break for drink and stuff
and food,
and to do that video you did just. Yeah. But I would recommend reading it. You don't have to do it in one go like I did. But there's a lot in there that I haven't said, even though there's a lot in there I have said, so I've probably spoiled it. But let's move on to book 2 anyway. We've discussed that for ages now. But it deserves it. It's the end of Warhammer. It deserves a nice long discussion. So we'll just get on to the rules, shall we? Anyone who's been waiting to see this. I didn't forget. I was just waxing lyrical. So the End Times army, choosing an army from this is basically the Grand Legion of Archaon, which is surprisingly anything, even the Skaven. Beastmen, Skaven, Warriors of Chaos, Demons of Chaos, pretty much anything, including extended stuff from White Dwarf, and rules for marks for the Beastmen. So anything you can imagine you can put in an army of the Ever-Chosen. We've got the rules for Bloodthirsters. There we go. These have been in White Dwarf, so not Dwell. And
Mine.
there's Claire's.
Yeah.
The third host. Scarblood Wraith, who I think you're going to get next week.
Probably, yes.
It's a very cool model, even though he dies repeatedly. Very cool.
Oh well. He said he's like, what was it, Angron?
He reminds me of Angron because he's got the twin axes and the chain to him, and he just reminds me. He's his whole ethos. But he's a champion of Cron, isn't he? So that's kind of what they do. Just charge at things and kill people.
I'm going to have to get myself a drink.
Okay. You got the Skull Reapers of Khorne there. 40 points each. Wrathmongers, your guys.
Yay!
Which is a video for yesterday.
Yep.
If you haven't already seen it, please take a look at that. Rules for Isabella the Accursed. There she is.
She looks like Bella. Sorry.
Bella?
Just in that picture, she looks like Bella.
What, from Twilight?
Yeah.
Oh God. Got right off of me. Balthazar Gelt. Incarnate of Metal. Tyrion the Incarnate of Life.
Light.
Light, even. Sorry. Grimgor Beasts. Caradin. Caradreen. Card of Fire. And Archaon,
Yay.
the Ever-Chosen. There he is, weighing 865 points. The eye who told me about, really.
I wonder if he needs to get a contact lens for that eye in the middle of his head.
Well, he doesn't have it anymore, does he?
Hmm?
He doesn't have it anymore. He's been poked out by the orc.
Well, he's only got one eye.
Well, he's only got one now, that's for sure. So the Blood Hunt, he has a special rules. It's a bit like Formations again from 40k. And the ones we've had in the End Times. The Blood Hunt rules and special rules for that. It's quite a good one to do if you did an army. I was talking to Claire though.
Sorry.
Army of the Blight, that's Isabella's. That does interest me actually because I'm got Nurgle things. That'd be a pretty cool one to do. The Host of Death. Host of Fire and the Throng of Metal, which is Balthazar Gelt and the Dwarves. That'd also be quite a cool formation to do. I'd need that model though, I don't have Gelt. The Beast War and the Host of Shadow. The Host of Life and Host of Light. And then the narrative scenarios where you can refight the battles from the book basically. And most of the battles take place at the very last part of the book in Middenheim. But there's the Siege of the Pyramid and the Battle for the Chasm. Defence of the Eternal Glade. The Bloodhunt Unleashed. And Middenheim Edge of Abyss. Middenheim Massacre. Middenheim the Western Wall. Middenheim Death Comes to Newmarket. It's like Newmarket, isn't it?
Yeah.
Middenheim the Clash of the Wind. Middenheim Battle of Ulrich's Bones. And the End of All Things. The Last Battle. Yep. So if you want to replay any of them, that's the way to do it in this book. So it's as good as the other ones really, for rules and stuff. There's no specific rules for fighting underground or anything like that like we did have in the other books. Or fighting in the jungle. It's just basically the final battles from book 1. we've discussed and gone through. So, there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've prattled on for a very long time now. It's going to be quite a long video. I'm sorry for that, but I hope it's been interesting at least, and I hope I haven't spoiled it too much if you wanted to read it yourself, or I hope I've told you what's going on if you can be bothered reading it yourself. There you go. I've told you what happened in it. But I hope you've enjoyed the video anyway. Please like and subscribe. Obviously this is the last of the end time stuff. We don't know what's coming for Warhammer now. I'm currently doing a Dwarf army, so I'm going to finish that off. The Skaven army that I've done is finished, and that went up on my channel this morning. Claire's currently painting a Bloodthirster.
Yep. Yeah, it's just been started.
Yep. So your host of the Blood God will be coming along soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure it will be, yeah. Eventually.
And then we're back onto 40k, I think.
Yeah, back onto
Dark
Elves.
Dark
Dark
Elves.
Eldar.
Dark Eldar.
Eldar.
Dark Elves?
Dark Elves, where did that come from?
I've been talking about it for ages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dark Eldar. And then we'll see what Games Workshop comes out with next.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what they're coming out with next, officially.
Mm.
There's a lot of rumours. But we shall see. I shall see them when I see them, and believe them when I see them, shall I say.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this ramble. It's a very long sort of ramble and book review. These ones do go on a bit, so I'm sorry for that. But see you soon.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.